fading. We gotta go. I'll get my car.
What mine?
Yours. I gotta get me one of those.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Baptins Discussions. So, I've been gone for a while, on vacation in Florida, but I'm back, and I'm ready to talk some Mandalorian. Hashtag justice for fives. But it would be fun to talk about this by myself, so I'm going to bring on some people right now. First, I've had her on my stream before for the intro reveal watch party. We have Retro Nerd Girl.
Hi.
How are you doing, Retro?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. You know, kind of sad to be back in cold Chicago. I miss the warmth of Florida, but
Oh, wow.
real life has to happen at some point.
Yeah.
And one more person I want to bring on real quick, and I always say to this guy, hashtag Obi-Wan gave up, hashtag I stand with Anakin Skywalker, hashtag the Sith are the good guys.
Yo, what is going on? Much love, Bad Dan. Thanks for having me on. And it's great to be over here with you and Retro Nerd Girl to talk some Mandalorian. Real quick. Yes. This is a great day.
Great day. And this is the way. Having two great people on to discuss a great show. Some ups, some downs. But let's get started. So we're going to start with a quick overview on what you thought of seasons 1 and 2.
Okay.
So let's start with you, Retro. What did you think?
Oh, sure. Seasons 1 and 2 were great. My favorite season was definitely season 1. And season 2 for me was still good and still up to the same energy. And I remember going through about half of it and just saying, oh my God, I love this series so much. And I wasn't really a big fan of that last episode. And I feel as if we're kind of dealing with the results of that last episode. We're still kind of feeling the ripple effect from that last episode in season 2, but I thought it was such a great return to form of Star Wars, just that, little piece of content that, makes you feel like, wow, Star Wars is really back.
I agree. That finale was great. And Skywalker, what about you?
Yeah, I loved the first two seasons as well. I'm not sure which one I enjoyed more. I did like season two a whole lot. Um, I would say maybe season one was better, like um from one to eight, but two might have peaked higher for me, if I could say that. So I really enjoyed the first two seasons. I was loving where it was going with Grogu and Moff Gideon and Luke Skywalker. Just everything. Mandalorian pretty much has been the best thing that Star Wars has had going forward since the Last Jedi has kind of split the fan base like it did. But yeah, I loved the first two seasons of this show, and coming into season three, I was pretty hyped for it. So uh, been loving it so far.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. I loved seasons 1 and 2 as well. Just the from the pilot, the very beginning, seeing Din Djarin kick ass as a bounty hunter, seeing the child that's Yoda's species using the Force. It was just so great. And Moff Gideon, I love the actor. I can't pronounce his name, but I saw him as Gus Fring on Gian. How do you say it?
Giancarlo.
Giancarlo. Just I love that actor, and great Gus Fring, great as Stan Edgar from The Boys. And just season 2, seeing all these Easter eggs from Clone Wars. You see Bo-Katan, you see Ahsoka, you mentioned Grand Admiral Thrawn from Rebels. It was just, oh my God, a great thing, really great television. And it had a clear plan. And we're going to kind of get into this later on, but like, it felt like it had a great 2-season plan. Mando finds the child. He has to get him home or get him to a Jedi. There's a clear mission from the first 2 seasons from beginning to end. My personal favorite was the prison breakout episode in season 1.
Oh, yes. That was so good.
I even love how it, I don't know, do either of you watch those How It Should Have Ended videos?
Yeah, I do, but I didn't see one for that one. Oh, there's one out there?
For Mandalorian season 1, yes.
Oh, okay. I have to find it.
And what happens is that they go by episode, and when they get to that episode, they're like, there's nothing wrong with this episode, move along.
Oh, that's a first.
Yeah, that's how you know it's good, when How It Should Have Ended can't even think of anything to make fun of.
Oh, that's cool.
And just that Luke Skywalker cameo at the end, great, just seeing Mark Hamill in some good Star Wars again. You know, nothing, wise old Luke, you know, the one who does not fall and does not try to kill his nephew, because that just, you know, doesn't happen. I throw a lot of shade at the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, I think that was one.
You already know how I feel about that, Bad Dan.
Right, it almost made you walk out of the theater.
A lot of people felt like that last episode in season 2 really vindicated Luke and showed him finally the way we had all imagined him after Return of the Jedi. And it just it wasn't my favorite episode, but I thought it was it was a good thing. I thought he would be involved with this show a lot more, to be honest, after they had accomplished that. But they did not follow through with Luke at all. So that was a little disappointing later on.
Well,
Bulletin.
Good transition, actually, because they do follow through with Luke on something. So to kind of clarify this part of the topic, we're not talking about the whole show. We're strictly kind of talking about like the Mandalorian aspect of Book of Boba Fett, as that kind of plays into season 3. So same thing. We'll start with you, Retro. What were your thoughts on like the Mandalorian part? So episodes 4 or 5 or 5 and 6 and part of 7.
I think it split the story up too much. Like I understand the actual episodes itself, if you extracted them from Boba Fett and say, oh, this is Mando 2.0, it that's fine. But I also felt like this could have just been season 3. Or since we were going to go into the territory eventually of the term the Mandalorian being ambiguous, why not just have the 3rd season of the Mandalorian be that Boba Fett whole thing? Because then we get the concept that the Mandalorian is just talking about Mandalorians in general. And see, I think that's one of those last minute decision to tell the fans that they're crazy for wanting Din to be in his own series. That series is supposed to be the Mandalorian is supposed to be Din's story, and Boba Fett was another story altogether. So putting them together was really awkward, weird. It was like it didn't feel natural, and it was abrasive, to say the least, and didn't feel like it belonged together. Eventually, when they do come together, it was super, super awesome to see both Din and um and Boba Fett fighting together. I love that scene when they're fighting together side by side, even though it's not really practical if you think about it logistically. But it was a great moment, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed a lot of the things that happened with Grogu, but it also took uh, Grogu out of the environment of being with Luke and put him back into Din's arm again. So it undid everything that season 2, episode 8 did, to get Luke in, to start or to continue Grogu's training. And I was not a fan of that whole process. I wonder if it could have been done smoother, is what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, a lot of what you said I agree with completely. And Skywalker, what about you? What are your thoughts?
For me, I kind of came out on the opposite end of the spectrum, guys. I thought that Boba Fett was a little slow for me, right? And I enjoyed the Mandalorian episodes kind of more than I did, the actual Boba Fett show, right? And so I think that for me, them having Boba with his helmet off so much was really jarring for me, right? I mean, this guy had his helmet on for God knows how long, and then as soon as we get these series, it just seems like he's out of his helmet like all the time, right? And even the actor kind of spoke to that, like as saying, "Hey, for next season, he needs to have his helmet on more." And so that was a bit jarring for me. And so when we got the kind of Din Djarin episodes, it really kind of picked it up, in my opinion. But that looking forward, I still think that if Boba Fett does get a season 2, I am going to check it out. And I think that it's going to be better than the first season, because they can kind of learn from what worked and what didn't.
Yeah,
I
I
agree 100%.
agree. I agree as well. And you're right. That, in which it shouldn't have been, the best episodes of Boba Fett were the Mando episodes. I mean, that should not actually happen, but that's exactly what happened. They improved that series completely.
By removing the main character.
Sad, but true.
That was my issue, is that I described the Mandalorian episodes as some of the best Star Wars television, but some of the worst Book of Boba Fett episodes ever. Because there were great moments. Like, we got to see Luke Skywalker meeting Ahsoka. We got to see Anakin's son and Anakin's apprentice, who,
Yes.
like Obi-Wan, also gave up on Anakin, but still, we got to see them meet. And it was such a cool moment to see Luke return, to see some of that. And it just felt like it was in the wrong show. And that was my biggest issue with that, is that if I want to see, even though they were better episodes from a quality standpoint, it did kind of create that narrative issue. And, you know, I actually kind of thought episode 4 was in Book of Boba Fett was starting to get interesting. And then they undid that. But my biggest issue with this all is that they spent 2 seasons of getting Grogu to a Jedi. And they finally accomplished that. And so, like, I understood they had to reunite them at some point, but it should have felt a lot more earned. It should have maybe even been a whole season of that developing, but they did it in another show. That's the biggest issue. It's like, they ended a major plot line in another show, and if you're someone who just watches Mandalorian, you're like, you have no idea what's going on because you don't think you should have to watch another show for Mandalorian to make sense. And that was my issue, is that, again, great television, but terrible, not the place for it, and a rushed storyline. Because, and we'll get into this later, but I feel that there was an episode that there were some episodes that could have been cut a little bit, or there was some filler that could have been merged together, and they could have put that second Mandalorian episode in Boba Fett, that could have been the premiere, and Boba Fett could have had another episode back of his own show, like, could have seen him learn to ride the Rancor. So, I mean, there were many issues with Book of Boba Fett, but I do feel like if maybe, too, they had...
Like a panther.
Gotta pull that up.
Like a panther.
Oh God, no. I mean, and even though I thought those were some of the better parts of Book of Boba Fett were the flashbacks, that is just awful. God, don't.
Yeah, it was a little slow and maybe even boring, but I mean, some of it was fascinating and interesting, but also I had a lot of questions about it. The one thing that I felt also is that the showrunners mentioned that it had been 2 years between the time that uh, Luke had Grogu with him and was training him. So that had been 2 years time, and so we don't get a sense of the weight of that time at all in those few episodes. And so it's kind of weird that all of us, you know, went to go find reach out to Luke comes and gets him in a big rescue, and then he's back. You know, he leaves him and goes back to the Mandalorian. It just felt so like they were undoing what they did in that episode, that season 2 episode. And there's another big thing that they did in that to undo what happened in that episode, and I guess we'll get to it eventually, but I'll just mention it really quickly, is that one of the things that they undid in this season 3 is that they this was the time that Din won the dark saber, or yeah, the dark saber. And once he got that dark saber, that created a problem, right? So I think perhaps the writers were in a corner, didn't know what to do with this, and had to try to figure out a way to write write themselves out of it. And basically, by the end of season 3, Din is with Grogu, and the dark saber is not a problem anymore. So it just is felt like they were undoing all of the problems that may have been created by that fantastic episode that everybody loved. It was, I think, problematic for them. They were trying to figure out, okay, we don't want to lose Grogu because he's our cash cow. He's the one that's that people are buying toys for, and they'll watch short animated films of, and we've got to milk that cow. And so and I understand that, because I myself see a lot of potential in stories with Grogu and Din together. So putting them together feels natural for me. And I know it doesn't feel that way for everybody else, but I feel also too that that through the writing, they just were having a problem getting it to flow just right. So that way it would work um, and flow evenly. And that's why, that's why we're here pretty much talking about this.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's the same. Hold on a second. I think you have a bit of an echo on your end.
I do. Okay, let me try something.
Okay, I'll just put you on mute real quick. So basically, while she gets that settled, I agree. It's like they even like had Mando train with the armorer for to wield the dark saber. They were setting Mando up to be that leader. It felt like in Book of Boba Fett. I mean, and I'm going to say this right now: the armorer, when training with Mando, beat Mando in combat. Technically, the armorer beat Mando in combat when training him. So if we're going to go on technicalities, which we will touch on that later when we get to that part of the topic, I'm just saying, it just shows that they didn't really. It almost felt like, it kind of felt like to me, it felt like the sequel trilogy, where you had one director who wanted Mando to wield the darksaber, and then in season 3 you got Rian Johnson, and I'm just going to go in the order of the directors who got in the sequel trilogy for this analogy. You got Rian Johnson, who wanted to undo all that in season 3. And kind of what I'll say with the sequel trilogy, like with Rey, for example, kind of that same thing, is either her being a somebody or a nobody was fine, but it should have been consistent one way or the other. Same thing with Mando and the darksaber. If he was not meant to wield the darksaber, that would have been fine. But I wanted to see that I wanted to see a consistent vision, which we did not get. So that's, and you know what, we're kind of already talking about it at this point. So let's jump into, so we're going to kind of do this by kind of the different story arcs of season 3. So we're going to start with episodes 1 through 3, which is kind of the Mando redemption arc, where he has to redeem himself to get into to bathe into the living waters and become a Mandalorian, meets Bo-Katan. So, and then we'll talk about that episode with the clone doctor and that, I don't even remember her name, Moff Gideon's right-hand female woman. So
Elia Kane.
Elia Kane? That's how you pronounce it?
Mm-hmm.
This is why I like the discussions, because if I forget a name, I have someone who can come on and be like...
Sometimes. I remember.
Or like when Trey forgets what Andor is. I had to. Sorry, Trey. If you watch this on the replay, you know I had to.
Oh, hi, Trey.
But what do you think about the first 3? What are your overall thoughts on the first 3 episodes?
Okay. I enjoyed them because I do respect production of things. Like, I know it takes a lot of energy, a lot of work, a lot of professionals to create the things that we see on camera, right? So
Tell about this, Corey.
Hey, Corey. And I have a lot of respect for putting a piece of work together, whether it be film, video. It does take a lot of coordination and a lot of professionals to get together to do this, and a lot of them putting their heart and soul into it. I enjoyed what was presented as an idea on a general position, but I felt even from the very first episode, I was like, okay, there's a lot of stuff happening here in that first episode. I was very concerned. Is this going to matter in the story? Because it's very nice when you can watch a nice, tight story or that doesn't have a lot of extra stuff that is not going to matter, but actually pertains to the story. And you can weave this really nice, tight story that really delivers a punch, once you get to the second act and the climax. So I'm looking for all of those structure in this, and I was like, okay, this is all good. It's a very action-packed first episode. The second episode, completely different tone altogether. Very, it was more somber. Some of it to me logistically didn't make sense, and I say that in the nicest way possible, because there was a lot of repeated actions, a lot of things that didn't seem reasonable to me. But I know the purpose of the scene. I know what was supposed to happen, why it happened, and it was supposed to give us a bigger sense of what the story was, giving us a look at the lore of Mandalore and the culture of the Mandalorians, inserting Bo-Katan's history with being a Mandalorian princess, and also gave us a glimpse of the mythosaur. And that, when it left, it had, like, at the end of that episode, there was such a great cliffhanger. And I was like, it was like, oh my God, the bad channel,
What up, Trey?
You can't get over on Trey. And it's just been it was really like that second episode had a lot of juicy content and ideas in it. And so I really enjoyed what I could out of that. And it left you on sort of a cliffhanger. What is Bo going to do now that she has seen the mythosaur? Is she going to tell? Is she going to tell about it? Is she going to, claim the mythosaur? What is she going to do? That was the big thing. And it was very exciting to see in the third episode that she still had her helmet on. And right then I was like, she's thinking, she's trying to whip up a plan. And I felt like it might have been, it was interesting, but it did not have the they didn't stick the landing on that as best as possible, in my opinion, because here she is leaving her helmet on. I really wanted to know what was going through her head, and we still don't know what she was thinking at that moment. We're only guessing what she might have been thinking, what she might have been feeling. And so the next scene is them leaving to her ancestral home, which they are attacked by strangers. We still don't know by the end of season 3 who did that. We can assume that maybe Moff Gideon did that, but we have no confirmation. There was no real confirmation as to who did that or why. And so it is like another thing that was not answered in episode 3. Then we have, okay, so she has nowhere to go. She's still wearing her helmet, which is still blowing my mind, because Usually when somebody, she would take off her helmet for any reason. She was taking off her helmet for any reason, and all of a sudden she stopped doing that. So I was hoping that we were going to get some dialogue there. We still didn't get any dialogue. Next scene, they're off to a serious place where all the other Mandalorians are. So Alden says, "Oh, we're going somewhere that no one can find us or something." So the next scene is Coruscant and all of that stuff with Dr. Pershing, which could have completely been taken out of the series and not have affected the end result of it at all. It could have, that entire area could have been erased and not would have changed the end story at one bit. And it's just, it's very awkward. It was juicy. I enjoyed it, but it didn't have a relevance for the story. As far as purpose, it was sort of a, oh yeah, like in the other room, such and such was clipping their toenails. Like, okay, why don't you tell more of this story that we're really, 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 really interested in? And so the next scene after that, we get Bo-Katan arriving on this mysterious Jurassic Park world, and then meeting all the other Mandalorians and them getting together, and now she can join their group. Now, and I thought that was fascinating, but we didn't stick with that enough for me to get an idea of how she was feeling, what if she was planning something or what. It was very it didn't fill in the blanks for me. And I guess we're supposed to do all of the filling in of the blanks. It's just a lot of blanks that we're filling in at this point. So I think it was, the first 3 episodes, it's not enough to judge a series on, right? So once you get past the 3rd episode, you're waiting patiently for the next episodes to fill in whatever you didn't get, right? All that information you didn't get, the stuff about IG-11, what's happening with that, all that stuff. We're and the pirates. We're hoping that the future will give us that information. So episodes 1 to 3, I thought they were good. They were very entertaining, but there were questions, and we were like waiting for those answers, patiently waiting for answers to the questions,
Yeah, which, we didn't get a lot of that delivered, and we got Trey's fellow Jedi sympathizer back, Skywalker. We are talking about episodes 1 through 3 of season 3, the whole redemption arc of him bathing in the living waters, that cloning, what's her name? I forget her name. I know you just said it. Trey's gonna make fun of me. No, the Moff Gideon's.
Oh, Elia Kane.
Elia Kane. I know. I make fun of Trey for forgetting Alderaan, and here I am forgetting Elia Kane. But anyway, Skywalker, what are your thoughts on the first 3 episodes of season 3 of Mandalorian?
Man, the first 3 episodes, I was pretty into them, right? That was Din bathing in the living waters and getting captured, right? That was the spy episode where, Elia Kane, you end up meeting her character. Yeah, I thought that, they were okay. I heard the back end of what Retro was saying, and I do agree that they were setting up a lot of questions, right? In the beginning of the season, and not a lot of the questions got answered. And so it was a very curious way to kind of start the season off. I was kind of like, okay, well, where are they going with this? And I still kind of felt that way quite a bit into the season. But Just as for the first 3 episodes, I thought that they were solid, but I wasn't really jumping out of my seat yet with any excitement at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of have that same viewpoint. Honestly, it felt like the first 3 episodes were essentially the exposition season. Like episode 1 was basically just showing Mando kind of and Grogu back together, recapping for those who didn't watch Book of Boba Fett, and then meeting Grief Karga, seeing what happened on Navarro. And here's my biggest issue with this. I had 2 big issues with the redemption storyline. 1, Mando at that moment in time wields the Darksaber. That to me should trump anything. And this is, I guess, an issue with the Mandalorian episodes of Book of Boba Fett. But as the one who wields the Darksaber, in my mind, that should trump any rules regarding Mandalore if he is, at that moment in time, considered the ruler of Mandalore. So it shouldn't have mattered if he took off his helmet. He should have been able to tell the armorer, I wield the Darksaber, and you know what? I say that rule's stupid. So that was a weird issue. And also, again, how easy the redemption is. Because when this creed came out, Mandalore was not this abandoned planet that was dangerous to enter. At that moment in time, anyone could enter the living waters. So what stops that clan from just taking off their helmets regularly and just making sure that they bathe in the waters before the next meeting? So that was.
I can tell you what.
Oh, tell me.
Because the armor can't look at him and go, "This is the way." Right? Like, if they do that, then she can't say that, right? And that's my favorite thing that she does. Yo, I love the way this is the way, right? Hey, I love it. I love it.
How many different ways has she said that? Now, my favorite "This is the way" comes in the second episode, when Bo-Katan tells her story about her father, who died protecting Mandalore, and Din Djarin stops for a minute and he goes, "This is the way." I was like, yes, that shows just a smidge of his character, that he believes that risking your life or sacrificing your life for something as noble as your planet in your home world is definitely a noble task, and I love that about him. I also enjoyed the way Bo-Katan looks at him as he's pledging the creed and walking into the waters. It was almost like she's like, "Oh wow, this guy really believes in this garbage."
Yeah, it's kind of what Trey said on the Delta Squad. It's essentially Christianity. You have Catholics who believe in one thing and Protestants who believe in another, and essentially I'll kind of compare it. And I'm not going to compare one to the other because I feel like I'll have some angry Christians of any denomination in the comment section. But the point is, it's kind of that same thing, and it was. And I did like kind of seeing Bo-Katan kind of really learning to kind of understand Din Djarin's point of view and why that part of the creed means a lot to him. And there were some really great Bo-Katan and Din Djarin moments in the first 3 episodes, which I really loved. I will
agree. That's the most that we get, and that is a problem I have for a lot of the rest of the story, is that I really wanted them to get deeper. But the first 3 episodes, you're right, that is some good stuff there as far as Din Djarin and Bo-Katan, relating to each other.
Are they about to ship Din and Bo? Like, is that a thing?
Yeah,
I hope not.
Yeah, some people are, but I think we don't need to, because they're really, they're good as friends. It's not going to work out anyway, because Din is not going to be able to be in one place. I don't think At
Right.
least not, yeah, not at the throne.
And
Hey,
you don't
but,
need every
you
guy
know.
girl to get together.
I'm just joking, guys.
We know
And,
Skywalker, but that's why we
I
love
thought
it.
Bo-Katan was going to be toast in the season finale. But then again, I realized it really doesn't make much sense to kind of kill her character off before the movie. They're probably going to save any.
Ooh,
Yeah, right?
that's
Mm,
interesting. If they kill her in the movie,
mm.
Oh, damn.
just
Okay.
savage.
I think that, yo,
Like in the
I
first
got this
scene,
feeling
just
that
kill her right
Bo-Katan
off.
is toast. I just got this feeling that Bo-Katan is toast. Like, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, well, it would raise the stakes finally, because that's the thing that's missing is it doesn't look like anything's really truly dangerous. People get out of stuff all the time. It's not you know, I think in the first there was more. It doesn't feel very risky, not enough high tension, and I think something like that would be will kind of get your attention, right? I mean, they just killed off one of the main characters, so
Yeah.
um,
I mean,
it
plus, I mean, this is going to be wrapping up a lot of these storylines from the TV shows, right? So, I
yeah.
mean, I only think it's probably par for the course.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, I know that's what they said that they were going to do, but they shouldn't, because it would be very lucrative to keep this going for as long as possible. But if that's their plan, yeah, I like your idea of killing off a character like her, just to give us some stakes, that there's some stakes involved. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's what's missing from the storyline. There are very little stakes going on.
Yeah, I agree. I think just feels like not a lot happened. And kind of before we move on to the next portion of this topic, there was a point you said, and a point I said that kind of worked really well together. You said that we could have done away with episode 3 altogether. I said in the Book of Boba Fett's portion that they could have taken out one of the Mandalorian episodes and given Boba Fett an episode of his own show back. They could have taken out that cloning episode, and because my issue is, as much as I thought a lot of it was interesting, if you're going to do an episode without the main character in it much, you have to at least make it feel like it's justified for the story.
Yes.
And it didn't. They could have taken that episode out. Maybe they could have merged the Mandalorian and Bo-Katan parts of that episode into episode 4, because I did love the beginning when they're fighting all those TIE ships or whatever bombing Bo-Katan's home. I loved that. That was great action. They could have put that with episode 4, which is a pretty short episode, and taken out the cloning aspect altogether. And again, you could have put that second Mandalorian episode. That would have been a better season premiere, I argue, too, because that would have been less filler, and it would have found some actual cool moments that happened. Because that's my main issue with the first 3 episodes. It was all this filler, all this stuff that didn't really go anywhere. You have some great moments with Bo-Katan, which we do have to talk about, that she does rescue Din Djarin with the Darksaber, because that's gonna come to play later. Something that you didn't think was a big deal, but Mando gets captured, Bo-Katan gets the Darksaber, rescues Mando, and they didn't make a big deal about it.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, Mando didn't think it was a big deal at all at the time. So that had it. Again, I don't want to get too far ahead, but it relates.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally that entire episode 2, I've pretty much said, I think I've said it before, had wonderfully big ideas talking about the lore of Mandalore and the Mandalorians, and Bo-Katan's history, her backstory. But as far as executing the way it occurred, it was very, I hate to say the word sloppy, but it was really poorly executed. I mean, they get there, they send the robot, is the air okay? Okay, it's okay. Then they go. He goes out and fights a couple of monsters. Comes back, gets Grogu. They go back into the cave. Then he gets captured. Then Grogu comes out of the cave, and they go get Bo-Katan. Then she comes down. They go back into the cave, and then it's like what? It's like it's a lot of back and forth when it could have just been like, hey, Bo-Katan, I need your help. I need you to come with me because I need a witness to be to that I have bathed in the waters of blah blah blah. And she goes with him. Do me the solid,
Retro, you sound like you really not a fan of him bathing in the living waters, right?
No,
Like
I am a fan of. I like him bathing in the water, but I
was digging that, yo. That was dope,
The problem
And
for me, the problem for me is the back and forth they went. It was like they went back and then they went forward. Like just one time would be fine.
right. Yeah, I had always knew that when he brought that water back, that it was going like shine when she dropped it in the thing, and it was like she's like, "Yo, this is the way." I was like, "Yeah, that's hard."
So Skywalker, I see that you have to get going soon, so I want to give you a chance to give your final thoughts and talk about what you have coming up too.
Oh man, thank all you guys, for even having me over here, it's super dope to be on Bad Dan's platform, chilling with the homie, talking about some Star Wars, right? Because Bad Dan always talk about that I don't be talking about Star Wars, right? So I come to do it on his channel now, so he really can't say nothing, right? But yes, as for season 3 of The Mandalorian, I think it's the weakest of the 3 seasons. I did still find enjoyment watching it, and I really enjoyed the season finale, right? But as I said earlier, I was really high on those first 2 seasons. So even with this being the weakest of the 3, it was it was still a pretty decent season, right? And so moving forward, I'm super hyped for the Ahsoka show and whatever Dan and Grogu are going to be. I think I'm here for it. Moff Gideon is not dead. That was a clone that we saw die.
I hope not.
No, look, that Moff Gideon had the exact same face that all the other clones had. The Moff Gideon that we saw before had a mustache. Right?
That theory. I've heard that.
Yeah, I don't think that was him. I think that was very intentional. That they gave him the same face as the rest of the clones, 100%. But with that being said, yes, I am super hyped for these upcoming shows, right? Ahsoka and whatever the next season of The Mandalorian is going to be, Andor, all that stuff. I've been enjoying these shows quite a bit, and as I said earlier, I even think that the Book of Boba Fett is probably going to pick up its quality level in the next season. As for what I got coming up, this is a huge weekend. I can't stress that enough. This is full circle weekend. I have been running around like a madman, getting stuff ready, right? Trying to still work and do my job, and then be plugged in and get it in, just kind of make sure that everything is going to go as it should. But Full Circle Weekend is going to be crazy. The hashtag sale campaign, we'll be putting on 3 trending events. One, the whole weekend, we got a Man of Steel day, Batman vs Superman day, and we got a Wonder Woman Day, pretty much just celebrating the whole Trinity this upcoming weekend during Full Circle. And we're really looking forward to hopefully some great news coming out of Full Circle, but also a lot of great content as well, because we will be getting live streams, pictures, videos, whatever that we can get our hands on. Just look to Sammy Snyder Queen's account on Twitter. She will be dropping the majority of the sale stuff. So, it's a huge weekend. I think it's going to be the biggest weekend in the history of the Zack Snyder fandom. It's kind of shaping up to be that way, and I'm just really, really excited about all of the plans that we have for you guys, and I can't wait for you guys to see.
I'm really looking forward to it, Sky. We have so much great stuff coming up with the Cell movement, and I'll definitely get to give my thoughts on that towards the end of the show. And I really appreciate you I appreciate you stopping by. It was really great having you on. They get Skywalker to talk Star Wars, because yes, I do. Yes, people, for those of you who don't know, I do give him shit a lot for that, for not talking Star Wars, even though he has a Star Wars name. So, only fitting I had him on my show to talk Star Wars.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bad Dan. Thank you too as well, Retro. It's always a pleasure. And I'm gonna get working on that stream that we planned, because I want to do that pretty soon. So
Okay.
yes. Shouts out to both you guys. You guys are amazing, and I will talk to y'all later.
All right. Good.
Thank
Oh,
you.
did you have a stream tonight?
Hold on. Matter of fact, I'm tripping. I'm about to do a cool table stream, right? That's why I'm getting ready, because we have a cool table.
Okay, I was like, wait a minute. All right,
I'm
I'm gonna
sorry.
try to stop by once we're finished here.
Yes, absolutely. All right. You guys have a great evening, and hopefully we'll see you guys in the chat.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
And we also got one cool table person. We got another one. What up, El Necron? I'll have to catch that Pandora's Box. Man, I am so bad with names today. Yeah, I'll definitely catch that on replay. I love that.
Oh, it was good.
I
It
always
was good
love
this
that
time.
show.
Yeah,
Oh, it was?
It's
Oh,
always
good.
Yeah, it's always good. It was really good. There's a couple bombs in there. Mikey dropped some bombs.
I'll definitely be checking that one out. Thank
Yeah.
God for Replay Crew and
Yeah.
Super Bowl Corey.
Super Bro.
Throwing shit at Skywalker after he left, or maybe he technically typed it in while he was on here, but Super Bro, Super Bro and I, we agree on a lot of things. We both agree that Obi-Wan gave up. We both agree the Sith are the good guys. Count Dooku was right. And we got some more people in the chat. We got Obi-Wan, worst foster dad ever. He wasn't completely a foster. He was kind of a foster dad, I guess. Kind of
He was more like a brother. He's more like a foster big brother.
We'll say like an uncle. That's kind of between the two.
Yeah. I think they felt though like they were brothers. I mean, that was the vibe I was getting from them.
Oh, Obi-Wan and Anakin, yeah.
Yeah, and I think maybe that was part of the problem.
Oh yeah, because Anakin viewed Obi-Wan as a father, and Obi-Wan viewed Anakin as a brother.
Yes. He was looking for more guidance than he was, able to provide. But I'm somewhere in the middle, guys. I don't totally disagree. And but I do feel like Obi-Wan did try. I think he wasn't. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm somewhere in the middle. It's a tough one.
Yeah, I get that. There's sometimes it's hard to take a stance completely. I feel that Obi-Wan didn't even try to turn Anakin good, and he just immediately went to getting out his lightsaber to kill him. I see, and again, and maybe this will be a whole separate topic later. I personally think that Padme could have reached out to Anakin if Obi-Wan had not snuck aboard and made Anakin lose.
He was making some way, right? She was making some way, and then all of a sudden she saw Obi-Wan, and that was it. He got crazy after that.
This will definitely have to be a whole separate topic. But yeah, there is so much to discuss with that.
You need videos, and you need video proof and all that. I'm looking forward to that stream.
So that will definitely be one I have to get up. But we also got for the next part of Mandalorian. Episodes 4 through 6. So overall, this is essentially the whole Paz Vizsla or Paz Vizsla.
Paz Vizsla's son Ragnar.
Paz Vizsla. Ragnar
gets captured, right?
Gets captured. The pirates invade Navarro, and then Jack Black. Those 3 episodes.
Yes. I'm in a love-hate relationship. I wouldn't say hate. Love. Some of it I loved. Absolutely loved. Some of it I didn't. The whole episode 4. Some of it was useful. Some of it was not. The whole jetpack fuel thing came back to bite everybody in the butt in episode 8, because if they're running out of jet fuel in episode 4, why don't they run out of jet fuel in episode 8?
I thought it was because they didn't want to sneak up on the creature. Like they needed to sneak up on him because the creature would have heard the jet fuel.
That's why they didn't use it. But originally, when the creature first grabbed Ragnar, they all went after him, and they were like, "Oh, we don't have enough fuel." Now, it maybe I had talked about this earlier on my channel. Like, if they had said one line, like, "Oh, we didn't prepare for this, so I didn't prepare enough fuel in the pack," and that's what that would have answered some of the questions. But there was no answer to that. So they ran out of jet fuel in one situation. The other one, they had plenty. So I don't. It's a continuity issue here that a lot of people are being stuck on. They're like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. But otherwise, I feel like they could have taken that scene when the beast grabs Ragnar and takes off with him, and just erase all of the stuff in between that time to when they finally start chasing him down again. For the final time they chase down that beast after it leaves the nest. They could just erase all of that, where they spend the night and they're waiting, climbing the rocks. All of that was not necessary and seemed to be logistically weird, because a bird is going to grab some food that's a really tiny piece of food to give to its younglings, and is going to spend a night and a half with this thing waiting, and then regurgitate it up for the baby, and it's still alive. Like, this is all weird. I understand it's Star Wars, and so there's certain things that has to be PG, but it was so weird and clunky, if you will, And all they really needed to do was have the Mandalorians chase down that bird with the kid holding the kid, and just start the fight right there. Just start the fight and forget about this whole plan and all that stuff. It is one of the weirdest things to expand the time, the runtime, and it felt like, oh my God, this is really wasting my time. And I don't know, the next scene, the next one, episode 5, was actually fun, right? Wasn't that fun? Which one was that again? Episode 5?
The pirates.
The pirates.
Navarro.
That was actually fun for me. I thought that, I was like, finally, we're getting something that kind of relates to the first episode, and we're getting a reason for the Mandalorians to leave, wherever that weird planet is that they're on, and finally have a home of their own. I was very surprised by the end when the armorer says, "Hey, take off your helmet, and guess what? Now you're on a mission to save, to get Mandalorians, unite the tribes of the Mandalorians, and so we can take over our home world." And I thought, well, that's kind of a wild thing to do right now. I thought they wanted a home to be in. There it is, right there on Navarro. And so it was things were moving quite fast, and I didn't mind it too much. I had a lot more fun with that episode than pretty much any of the episodes. That was a really good one, in my opinion. Episode 6, I also had fun with episode 6, but it was another time waster, right? It was another thing that did not really fully mean that we were going to get to the thing. It was sort of like some people have called it like a gameplay, where you're like getting from one level to get to the next, which I don't mind that, except for the fact that it would have been nice if some of that was arranged a little bit more cleverly. And that was my only problem with episode 6. And of course, at the end, it was very annoying to know that Din Djarin just hands over the dark saber. To me, it was very annoying, because I was like, oh my God, why didn't you mention that before? In episode 2, you had the opportunity to just give her the sword then, and that would have been more meaningful. So there was a lot of awkward stuff. Again, I'm mentioning all of these critiques, but I enjoyed myself while I watched it. So it was still enjoyable. It just was like, if you think about how these things are supposed to happen, and I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions about how some of this stuff is happening. So that's how I felt about episodes 4 to 6. It was rocky. It wasn't smooth flowing, and it definitely did not answer any of the questions from 1 to 3. It just added more questions for me.
I agree 100%. I mean, like, you talk about episode 4 and all this filler in it. It's kind of like what I said earlier. They could have taken out the cloning aspect of episode 3, taken the Bo-Katan and Mando parts. They could have combined that with episode 4. They take, he's redeemed with Bo-Katan, and then they go back to that planet, whatever
Navarro?
that.
Is it the Jurassic Park?
Yeah, the Jurassic Park planet. We'll call it Jurassic Park, sure. But they could have taken that, and they could combine that with that episode 4 into one episode, and it would have flowed a lot better. because not a lot really happened. The only thing it really kind of established was gaining Bo-Katan's trust. That was the biggest issue. That was the biggest point of episode 4. And again, it leads me to this question that, I know that people are going to laugh at this, but this is a legitimate question I have. Vandals can't take off their helmets. How do they have kids? Do they? That's something I have to wonder. If they maybe go, do they with their helmet on? I mean, it kind of leads me to my point. Why I think they made the redemption easy. That's probably what happened back then. Is when anyone could go to Mandalore, is they probably did it with the helmet off, and then they bathed in the living waters right afterwards. That's what happened. Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're giving it way more thought than the writers did, because I don't think that's they're going to stay away from that like a with a 10-foot pole. I think what's
Didn't have mentioned having a son then.
One thing that I have to say that question really asked, that I've been asking is why do they keep the helmets on? Why? Like, is there a significance, a cultural significance that they have to keep the helmets on? And that would have been fantastic. Now that we have this entire season about the Mandalorians, we could learn something about. We could learn more about Pog Soup and whatever cultural things that they have going on for themselves that we don't know, and I don't that's the part of by episode 4 through 6, we really were missing that kind of information. As well, we were missing the information on why Bo-Katan has a spaceship. Why is she hanging around these guys? Why is she hanging around around Din Djarin? Why is she stuck to him like glue? Why are those two people together? And I say this for episode 6. We got that instructions in episode 5. Hey, you are going to be going out and finding more Mandalorians. Fine. Why is Din Djarin showing up in episode 6 alongside her? He didn't get the he didn't get the command to do that. Why is he there? So what is the thing that is keeping these two characters together? Is it because Din Djarin feels indebted to Bo-Katan because she saved his life like a million times already? Or is there something more? Is there a deeper friendship brewing? We don't get any of that explanation. And being that a lot of those episodes were so short, it would have been lovely to have that woven in to the storyline. A few moments of them by the campfire talking about these things, sharing more information about their character, and us being able to learn more about why they're bonded together like this. To me, it just seems weird. We don't need a romance. We just need a friendship relationship explained a little bit more.
Yeah, I
that's
agree. I agree with that, though. Is that it just there was really not a reason they were together simply because the script Din Djarin's they want to consider the main character, so that's why they put him there.
Yes.
I thought, to me, the big good episode of those 3 episodes was episode 5. The pirate action, I love that. Paz Vizsla's speech about why we're doing it, the way that 180 kind of pulled when it seemed like he was going to say, no, don't help them. And he's like, no, let's help them. I thought that was a great scene.
Yes.
Zeb's cameo, seeing Zeb voiced by the same actor, Steve Blum. I love that.
And Captain Teva, that whole scene, that was very good. That was very good. I feel like of the seasons, I would say that's my 3rd favorite. That's my third favorite. Episode 5 is definitely my third favorite. Definitely great stuff in that episode. And episode 6 was interesting. I enjoyed all of the callbacks to all the different movies and sci-fi movies of yesteryear, Blade Runner, Logan's Run, where what have you, what may you. But I definitely even robots, iRobot that was referenced in that particular episode. The whole part about the whole robots was like almost like, and I've described it before, like opening up a can of worms. They weren't ready for what that story contained, talking about the robots and a possible revolt or whatever. And it turns out that it wasn't all of that. It was just some guy who was looking for some revenge or looking to upset the chain of command or upset the royals. And there was no tension. I mean, we're talking about killer robots about to attack the city and kill everyone, and there was absolutely no tension as we see this royal party playing. And it's like, I'm not afraid for these guys. I want them to get attacked at least. That would be some action so we can see that there's a real threat here. They don't seem to care. And that to me was very have some chuckles from it. I had some chuckles for it, but I don't know if the chuckles were from really something that the writers had intended me to do. But again, in fact, the look of everything was beautiful. The special effects were wonderful. The aliens, we got aliens. We got a new world, Plazia 15. That's great. I love going to new worlds and seeing more aliens. That was all good stuff. And so it is sort of like, okay, yes, I like this, but also where's my story?
It just felt like it felt like a lot of world building instead of storytelling. That was like my biggest issue. I kind of talked about this when I was reviewing the trailer for Mandalorian season 3. I thought the trailer made it look like Din Djarin. They were setting Din Djarin up to be the leader of Mandalore. They made it look like he was gathering these scattered Mandalorians, and then they were all together. And then the captain, what's his name again? Captain, the New Republic soldier, the one who's talking to Zeb.
Carson Teva.
Carson Teva. When he was saying in the trailer, he was like saying that, how you have to do something. By the time you act, it'll be too late. I just assumed he was talking to Din Djarin, and then he was talking to some nobody character. I'm like, I know, I felt a little let down by that, but it was cool to see. I say cool slightly because I still hate considering the sequel trilogy canon, but you really see how the New Republic felt. And I think that's something they did illustrate well, is the fact that they're too slow to act.
Yeah, that was episode 5, right? And that's why I feel like episode 5 was one of the juicier episodes. It was my third favorite episode because it really did a good job of filling in some of the gaps. And I wouldn't have minded if we had just started there, to be honest. But it is definitely one of those things where episode 6 was the place in which a lot of people turned against the series completely. I mean, people were like, I'm never going to watch Star Wars again, and I'm done with this series. I thought it was a little bit dramatic, right?
It was one bad episode. Stranger Things had one bad episode in season 2, and there were some good moments in that episode. I do agree. It felt like, as you said, nothing happened with the robot uprising. And even if it didn't play, they could have made it seem like it was going to play into next season at the very least at that point. And
yes.
And Din Djarin uses the Darksaber, even though doesn't wield it by his logic.
Yes. I noticed that. And you know what? Technically, they can still save episode 6 in season 4. And I know there's are like, no, but if they could go and say, hey, look, that guy that we thought was the bad guy was really the bad guy, and turn Jack Black into a true evil person, and he's gotten what he needed from the from Plazia 15, and he's doing all of this in the name of the Empire. And it really like, oh, so all this time he's been pretending, and now he's the true, evil guy has come through, and he does something to the princess, like imprisons her or something. It would be finally we have stakes to that story. That was all a ruse, and now these guys are really going to, they're meaningful again. And I find that if something like that happened in like season 4 or some other season, that would be interesting. But as it stands, that storyline as it is, those guys, they're really like, I hope we don't visit them again if they're going to be just the way they are. Because there was, again, no tension, and it didn't mean anything to have those characters there. They didn't really offer anything to the universe. And you like look at those guys, and you look at Giancarlo Esposito, and you're like, okay, it's this night and day. This doesn't work together. So I don't have an aversion to episode 6. I'll watch it again, but there are a lot of problems in the episode. It wasn't my favorite, but episode 5 though, like lots of thumbs up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Episode 5, you just got lots of great action with the pirates, and just the Mandalorians fighting them, and just the way that the captain went to was able to track down. This was weird. Like he through that R2 type unit was able to track where the Mandalorians were, and yet they still kept that R2 unit around. I thought that was a little weird, but I like that he shows that he does trust Din Djarin. He's shown that Din Djarin is a good guy, even though I still have an issue with this. In the second episode, episode 2, they left Mando on that planet, on that ice planet, without a ship. It was cold. I was annoyed that they just did that. A bit of a tangent, but other than that, though, it was just great seeing the action, seeing the armorer actually kick some ass too, and it was weird that 180 they did pull with Bo-Katan. She's like, take off your helmet. I just that to me came out of nowhere. That was like another issue I had with the episode. But honestly, sometimes I just love good action with good. And seeing that the Mandalorians actually kind of acting as the sheriffs, because Navarro doesn't have any type of law. I'm going to try to be careful how I word this, because in today's political climate, I don't want to be too put it like this. You need someone to enforce it when the pirates involve if other bad guys come on. You need some people to kind of enforce that, to make sure that it doesn't happen, because in the Star Wars universe, that's just not realistic.
Yeah.
But it just... So it did make sense that they kind of addressed that, since, they lost Cara Dune, since she was in the show's universe. She was off to the New Republic.
Yeah.
So they did address that, even though they leave pretty quickly. But episode 6, it just didn't really feel like... It didn't really feel like Star Wars watching Jack Black's in like that scene. Just it felt like something completely different, and lots of filler episodes. And here's a nitpick I have. They said Imperial droids. They said it was the Imperial droids they had. That was what they said, right? Imperial. I just want to make sure I remember that correct.
Yeah, they did say that.
Okay, because the Separatist droids are not Imperial. If anything, the Republic is what became the Empire, not the Separatists. The Separatist droids are not Imperial droids. those are completely separate things. It's like, and Dave Filoni is supposed to be good with details, because here's a fun fact with Dave Filoni. Remember that line in episode 3 where Grievous meets Anakin for the first time? He's like, I expected someone of your reputation to be a little bit older. And Dave Filoni's involved in this in Mandalorian. In Clone Wars, he went out of his way to have Anakin and Grievous not interact to keep that line, so that line in episode 3 would make sense. And they, in Clone Wars, they went crazy out of their way to have Anakin and Grievous not meet. Like, sometimes it felt like they should have met. The only reason they did that was because they had to make that line make sense.
Yeah.
The reason why I bring that up is that Dave Filoni, who I do think is involved in Mandalorian, he is supposed to be better with details. If he could get something like that correct, why couldn't he get something like this correct by not calling the Separatist droids Imperial? They were Separatist droids, and it was cool seeing the Separatist droids again. I mean, make no mistake, I like seeing that, but it just came out of nowhere. Just a little detail like that.
Yeah, it's the details. Everything, like, it doesn't make any sense. But jet fuel pack, stuff. Why do people wear the helmet? Difference between Separatist droids and Imperial droids. These are things that the fans keep track of, because we love Star Wars content. So we're gonna look at every single detail. In turn, we expect people who are getting paid lots of money to make the content, to do the extra due diligence to make sure that this content is accurate to the best of their ability. And maybe it's like, okay, we slipped. But there, in this series in particular, there's a lot of slippage. And so it's just kind of like, okay, where is it that we're making sense for any of this? Can we take this world seriously? And, for a while, I didn't watch a lot of Star Wars stuff, and I came back to it. And when I came back to it, I had a different look on it. It's like, look, this stuff is not going to be perfect. It never has been for me, except for the first 2 movies, and that was it. So in order to accept the entertainment that we get today, we kind of have to say, hey, look, there's going to be stuff we are going to disagree with, because the content is not going to have the correct continuity. They've been doing this since 1983 and 1983, 1984, and now they have some new entertainment, and some of it is going to be really, really good. I mean, we haven't gotten there, but the next 2 episodes are going to be fantastic. And episode 5 was pretty darn good, with the exception of a few things. So it's sort of like finding in Star Wars today a little bit of what you like, and also knowing there's going to be some stuff that's not going to be perfect. It's not the best way to look at entertainment, but get what you can out of it that you can enjoy is pretty much like the big deal. Like, try to get as much as you can enjoy out of this stuff. And for the most part, I have to say, even though there were the problems that we have, I did enjoy the series. So I guess that sums up my rant there for a minute.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree though with what you said perfectly. Is that there were some problems, but overall, I mean, those 3 episodes I did enjoy. And before we move on to the next 2 episodes, I hated the ending of episode 6. That's my biggest issue with episode 6 is the end. It's like,
it was
because here's what I never understood this. Why didn't Bo-Katan just challenge Din Djarin to a fight?
It would have been wonderful.
She didn't have to kill him. I mean, she didn't kill. I mean, Din Djarin didn't kill Moff Gideon. Din Djarin didn't kill Paz Vizsla in Book of Boba Fett when he technically challenged Din Djarin to the Darksaber. So there was no reason, and it was just that stupid technicality. It just because they could have picked up on it earlier, and they didn't. He didn't pick it. It just felt like the biggest afterthought ever.
Yeah, I mean, there was so many things wrong with that moment, and I think it would have been solved easily if he had, right at the beginning in episode 2, it said, "Hey, I think this belongs to you now," and given it to her, and that would have made him smart, right? Okay, Din Djarin is smart. He knows the rules of the sword, of the saber, and he's putting things together. And by her having it, when she arrives at the spot where all of the Mandalorians are, just automatically gives her power. And then she can fill them in on what's next on the agenda. And maybe there's somebody who says, "Yeah, you have the sword, but I don't think you're to rule. So I challenge you." So maybe have that fight with Axe Woves that they were so desperate to have, and have him say, "Hey, look, I'm going to challenge you for the sword." That would have been spicy.
Oh wow, much better than the paid people.
Yeah, or once they got there, and Din has the sword, and she's in front of her people. She says, "Thank you, and I'm really, really sorry, but I'm gonna have to challenge you for the sword right now." It would have been emotionally, um, it would have wrecked us as an audience, because we know that she likes him a lot. She cares about him, and she has to fight him now for this thing that she needs. And it's not just because she wants it, because she has to get this to unite all people. And so that would have been a wonderful moment that we didn't get, like Din Djarin and Bo-Katan fighting each other, two very, very good fighters fighting each other and at the top of their game. Really awesome. And I've even seen it on some other places where you kind of do it with a comedic thing where not totally funny, but she fights him, he fights her, but maybe he does, he does have the upper hand, but he's kind of not really fighting 100% because he wants her to get it. And I think in the one fight scene that I saw, they were like, "Oh, she doesn't." Oh, this was in a movie called Red Sonja. Yes, I don't know if you've ever seen Red Sonja.
Oh no, I haven't.
With Brigitte. Well, Red Sonja has to fight a character that is a barbarian who is being played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and in order to have her as his girlfriend or whatever, he has to beat her in battle, and so and so they're fighting and there's hours and hours have gone by, and then one of the characters are like, "She's not even really fighting him, because she wants him to win ultimately." So that would have been kind of a cool thing here, where Din and Bo are fighting, but one of them decides, possibly Din is not really fighting 100%, because he wants her to get the sword, but to just in front of everyone, just to make it look like she got it, and even still, that might not work very well, because again, this sword is cursed. It's so cursed. So if they did it that way anyway, it probably might not work, because if he threw the fight, because it has to be won in a fight. You know, it has to be won in a fight.
Because Din Djarin technically yielded in the season finale of 2. He's like, I yield. And Bo-Katan was like, yeah, no, that doesn't work. So I don't think faking it would have worked, but...
Yeah, it might not have worked. It might have been
I don't know.
fun.
They could have done something else, but
Yeah.
it just... I agree, though. It really felt like they just needed... Again, it felt like they wanted... At first, they wanted Din Djarin to have the Darksaber, and then I feel like they wanted him to get away with Grogu. I feel like, because here's the thing. I think they planned on Grogu being away, because here's my other issue, though, with episodes, with, I guess, even 1 through 3. Grogu is literally a background character. They made this big deal about getting Grogu back.
Oh my God.
And he did literally, what does he actually do in episodes 4 through 5? What significant thing, like, another issue I had with episode 6 was the fact that Din just left Grogu with 2 strangers. That also didn't make sense for his character.
Oh, well, yes. I mean, okay. Yeah, no, I'm trying to look at this in a positive way, but yeah, these little details is where there's troubles. But let's go back to the one that you were mentioning before about was it episode 2? Well, let's talk about episode 2, okay? Din gets captured by this crone, okay? Grogu is super, super powerful. I mean, he could have literally squeezed the heck out of that creature and made like soup out of him, literally. He, when he was training with Luke, how he destroyed that training droid. I was like, wow, that's pretty intense. He can do these things. He can do a lot. He can push force things, and we get a better glimpse of that at the last episodes here. But right at the beginning, he could have used his powers to move things and to push things out of the way. The whole purpose of that episode, I do believe, have Bo-Katan there when Din goes into the water. That was the purpose, and for her to see the mythosaur. That was the purpose of that episode. But we went through a whole bunch of other things, and Grogu absolutely did nothing because he wasn't, you're right, he wasn't supposed to be there. And I think, and I feel like Din, they show us training, they show us Din training with the Darksaber. Why show us Din training with the Darksaber if he wasn't meant to overcome his fears and his weakness and become a hero? Why would you set up your character to fail and give up? Like I was so surprised. The last thing he does is he wields that sword with expertise, pretty much in that one Logan's Run scene where the robot is going haywire and shooting lasers all over the place. He comes right in and just slices that thing, and it's like, wow. I was like, hey, look, Din is finally learning how to use that sword. Nope, he's going to give it away. He's giving up. He's not good enough. He's never going to be a leader. What a letdown for the character. It's like, it's like looking at your kid and saying, hey, you're going to be great one day. And then they just give up and just they're not going to go to school anymore. Like, I just didn't
give it to someone else.
Yeah, it just blew my mind. I was like, what? Why would you character this way? And I think, and we all are getting the idea that this wasn't supposed to happen. They're undoing something. Like they were trying to go in one direction, and now they've changed. And whether
Last
it's because
Jedi, yes.
Yeah. And I think, and they were just getting an idea of something that they were going to do and said, that's not going to work, so let's do something else. Or it was sort of like somebody said, hey, look, let's get like Thrawn and Ahsoka, and let's do this big thing along the way, and let's like guide it in a different direction. We don't want our main character to be the king of Mandalore by then. We don't want him to have that kind of power. We want him to be, who he is kind of right now. So they undid fantastic stuff that was in episode in season 2, episode 8, and it was it's very hard to follow a story like that. And you're like, why are you doing this to your character? But again, they in the future, it's possible they could change that. It's still, there's still a chance that they can save the Mandalorian franchise or the Mandalorian Din Djarin, and make him into a fantastic character, because ultimately they kind of undid a lot of things, and yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm just like, no, don't do that to my character.
Well, you said that same just set up perfectly though for this next topic though. It's like, we're kind of into the probably the best portion of the season, in my opinion, were these last 2 episodes.
Absolutely. I wouldn't have minded episode 7 if how it starts with Elia Kane talking to Moff Gideon in a dark alleyway. I wouldn't mind that if that was the first scene out of this entire season. So you can just set up that there's a problem going on, right? Or that there is some meetings going on. You could even do it where she's talking to somebody, but we don't know, we can't see their face. So she's reporting something to them. This way we get a catch up with the characters and we know that she's a bad guy. It definitely would have inserted a lot more mystery along the way. One thing I didn't like though about episode 7 is that they named it Spies, the Spies, which led everybody to believe that there were multiple spies working. And there have been many explanations, some of them valid and some of them is like a stretch of the imagination. But I feel like what that did was something that the story actually needed very badly, which was a sense of mystery and suspicion, and it kind of raised the stakes a little. I'm a little mad because it wasn't an accurate label for the episode, but it did something that the season needed very much, which was bring some intrigue into the picture. And I really enjoyed how episode 7 played out. It was whodunit, really. I was looking at every single character and doubting everything that they did, and coming up with imaginative reasons as to why they could be the bad guy, and it was fun. It was absolutely a lot of fun. I enjoyed that about episode 7, that there was a sense of mystery, yeah, big thumbs up. Episode 7 was actually my favorite episode. It has a lot of action in it, not as much as 8, but it had the balance of action and intrigue.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything you said right there. It's like, I guess my biggest issue is like the Spies. It felt like it didn't pay off. The Spies, that title didn't pay off. I think that was like my biggest issue with that episode. But I love the opening. I love Moff Gideon talking with all these other Imperial high commanders and mentioning Thrawn returning.
Yes.
I mean, as much as I don't love the idea of the Empire rising like into the First Order, if anyone could make it happen, it's Thrawn. Like, Thrawn is the only way that they could fix that for me. So I like that they teased Thrawn. I was disappointed that they teased Thrawn and they didn't bring him in episode 8. I thought they were going to bring him in episode 8 since they teased him, but it was so cool seeing Moff Gideon again, because I knew he was going to be in it because the actor promoted the premiere of season 3. So I knew he wouldn't do that if he wasn't going to be in it. But it was so cool seeing him back finally, Moff Gideon, and I think it is the Moff Gideon. I'm sure in Star Wars they have shaving kits, so I'm not going to I'm not going to overthink that much, because I don't need another fake death. I've had enough of that. Like, just I need some of these deaths to be consistent. But that was cool to see, and I thought it was. So here's some issues I did have with episode 7. One, it's kind of weird that Grogu is essentially playing with the dead body of one of their friends. I know it's a machine, but still, it's still just weird to me. And in episode 2, there were no Mandalorians when Din and Bo went on Mandalore. But then all of a sudden, when they go there, they very quickly just happen to find the lost group of Mandalorians.
Well, I initially thought that they were sent by Moff Gideon, to be very honest with you. And so I was looking at them very suspiciously, like, who are these guys and why are they, but again, yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, the conveniences for the story or for the plot is really kind of baffling. It's sort of like, okay, what? That doesn't make sense. Why are these guys roaming the landscape? Moff Gideon would have found them already and destroyed them. Like, how that ship that they had was very, very big. That wasn't a small ship. And so they knew where the forge was, and right next to the forge was Moff Gideon's station. So they went there and they never saw Moff Gideon's station or any of the stuff. So this is very suspicious to me. It still is very suspicious. There was no answer to any of that. How they could have coexisted with them and not have seen them or seen any activity on the planet. We had I forgot what they call. I think they're called the Alamites in the second episode. Those blue creatures with 6 eyes. Like those guys, like all of a sudden they disappear. We went, wait a minute, where are those guys? It just, there's all of these like gigantic weird creatures in a lot of these episodes that just show up out of nowhere. Just felt like there was a lot of moments of just like, let's do this for a surprise. Suddenly there's a creature that just comes out of the ground, and it's like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. That there would be some sort of sign, some rumbling, some the creature is there. It's alone. Is it protecting a nest? There's got to be more. They have to think about what is going on these worlds that they're creating. Just doesn't feel like it was thought out, but somebody came up with the idea and they're like, okay, let's just do it, but without the logistics of knowing what it really might look like. And that's a hard thing to believe. We're trying to believe this fantasy, the fantasy of Star Wars, this that maybe we know, we've heard of, and we want to get into the world. We want to understand everything. We want to follow this. We want to feel like we know what the characters are doing or what the world is about. And so when we don't have these logistics working out for us, it throws off the enjoyability. Just a bit, if you can look past it, that's great. But once you start asking questions about stuff, it's like you're like, oh boy.
Yeah, and well, it's funny because actually doing this review, I thought episode 7 was going to have nothing but praise for, but it just me thinking of stuff and then you bringing stuff up, it's like even episode 7 wasn't as good as even I thought. I mean, there were some great moments in episode 7, like Paz Vizsla's sacrifice was, I mean, that was a heart-wrenching scene, and considering that he was kind of a dick, let's be honest, he was definitely a dick, and seeing him sacrificing himself at the end, that's a great moment. That's not to be sneezed at, but there was just a lot of stuff that didn't make sense too. Like when he and the guy from Bo-Katan's clan were playing chess, Star Wars chess, what I'm going to call it. Why couldn't they interfere? Why couldn't Din get his guy, Bo get her guy, and be like, hey, let's back off, not a big deal. But then Grogu technically is part of Din's clan. He was allowed to do something.
I'll say this. Grogu broke the rules. He wasn't supposed to do it, but he didn't know he wasn't supposed to do it. And so I actually kind of like that moment, because if Grogu is going to mean something to Mandalorians later, if anything, he's going to be someone who's going to say, these rules are stupid or silly, and let's break them. Because I can totally see him force pushing some people apart that are fighting, and with his own voice saying no, in the future. And being more of a person who's standing up for what's right. And I really like that. I really like that for Grogu. And the idea of him being in the body was like him finally feeling like I am the size of everybody else and I can actually do things with them. But as we kind of see, it also hinders him, right? It's kind of in a way, because to be in there controlling it. He doesn't have the mobility that he really should have. Eventually, he's got to learn how to do all of this stuff on his own, and he has the power, and he's not using it. And so, and if there is a strong issue with this season, is the fact that Grogu did absolutely as little as possible to use his powers, and he should be using them a lot more. He knows how to do things, how to push force things. He's had already choke forced Cara Dune once, so he knows how to do that. So those moments where he's sitting back and watching his father get captured, that was a baffling moment for me. Why isn't he doing anything? And initially I was like, he's scared. Is that what it is? He's scared. Oh, he didn't do this. Scared. That's, if that is going to be a plot point, and being that he's a Jedi, we should get more information about that. Hey, fear leads to you know what, right? It leads to anger, which leads to the dark side. So what is going on with Grogu? As the more he uses his powers, are we going to get a place where he's going to have to face off with the moral piece that Jedis have to face off with, where you are going to choose the light side or choose the dark side? That is a dilemma that I would love to also see with a character like him, because he is a baby. He needs there's something innocent about him, right? He sees people fighting. No, that's bad. Don't fight each other. But at the same time, if it really makes him angry, do you force choke them? Or do you like take a deep breath and walk away from it? Like, what is Grogu going to do if somebody hurt his father? Is he going to hurt them? In a very bad way. I mean, he could have easily took out Moff Gideon. Because he has that power. I'm not sure if he'll be able to crush, the metal that he's wearing. I'm like, for some reason forgetting what that metal was, but he wouldn't be able to crush the metal. He would be able to maybe push him off the ledge or break that.
Maybe.
Well, says Grogu turning into.
I think so.
Well, not just turning it, like at least battling with it, right? At least like tug of war. Like, yes, don't go down the dark. Grogu. At least, in the prequels, you had, and even in Empire Strikes Back, Yoda talked about this, not to go down the dark path. And I really feel like that would. I'm not saying it should explore it deeply, but just enough for us to know that okay, Grogu is not going to go down the dark side. He knows that he can't go down the dark side. He's going to do what he can. But him not using his powers at all is a mistake because it makes no sense. He's watching all of this weird stuff happening to his father and not going to get involved. So I really loved episode 8 for the fact that Grogu gets involved.
Yeah.
Grogu gets involved. I loved it. I was like, yes, finally, these guys are finally a team. They're fighting together side by side and getting the job done. Now, I know some people were like, oh no, but Grogu had to save Din. Against the Praetorian Guards? Yes, you need some help. You can look at him as a second fighter. But now, if they're going to go into battle situations together and Din is going to say, hey, I'm going to go into this dangerous situation and I nominate my son to go with me. Then it's like he can join in the fight by, knocking a weapon out of somebody's hand, pushing someone back, any one number of things, crushing the mechanical robot or some sort of door thing, open it up one of the blast doors or something. Like he needs to start being story, and they delivered some of what we have been craving from Grogu in this episode, episode 8, and I loved all of that. Loved it. So for me, episode 7 definitely because of the fact that we didn't know what was going to happen just yet, and the follow through of 8, that was my second favorite episode. So these 2 episodes are pretty solid for me, except for some of the logistic issues that don't make sense. But if you put that aside, it still was entertaining and fun.
I agree, and it's like, well, it's kind of what you said with Grogu. Is like, I think in some ways this is probably Grogu's most significant time was episode 7 and 8. But yes. I did kind of think, why didn't he rescue Din Djarin at the end of episode 7? He could have rescued Paz Vizsla. Why is he going through that hole? Why not, force choke the guys killing Paz Vizsla? That's my issue. You're going to kill off a character. I don't want to be like looking and be like, why didn't this person do something? I love sacrifices, but the sacrifice shouldn't be done for the sake of it. And that was my issue. And it's best part is rare.
And
right?
also here's another thing about Paz Vizsla dying, which it didn't need to happen. He has a rocket strapped to his back. Why didn't he just rocket out of there?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. That's actually a really good point. Yeah, he could have easily escaped. It's like I A sacrifice is not normal when is not noble when it's preventable, and that's just what that felt like to me, is that it was preventable. And it's just, Beskar is not this thing that anyone can just get. And it seems like Moff Gideon has it in spades. And I'm like, so it's just kind of weird that happened, how he could just find all that Beskar. Did he just, I guess maybe he took over Mandalore, maybe? I don't know that.
Well, I think the theory is that he's been on Mandalore this whole time, spreading this terrible rumor that it's unlivable, it's poisonous, but all that time keeping everyone away, he's been able to mine the planet and get the Beskar and be able to use it how he so desired to use it. And so that was actually, I think, clever that they did, but it would have been nice to get some more dialogue to support some of it, just a little bit, so that way we have a confirmation. It's not a theory, or it's not, you know what I mean? Everybody story, and I feel like that has been a lot of this story here, is that they shoved so much information in episodes 7 and 8. Just so much, like everything you need to know about the cloning. Not everything, but a lot about the cloning, a lot about Moff Gideon's plan. They even shoved some stuff about Thrawn in there. That was heavy stuff, a lot of heavy stuff, and I guess that's also too the reason why I liked it. It was like fast paced. There was a lot of information, but maybe it might have been just a little bit too much. There's still a lot of areas where, some people think this happened, or some people thought another thing happened. It doesn't have, it is not easy to follow. And the writing is just a little weird, but I think there are some excellent moments, like the gates scene for me was like one of the top scenes, where we get R5, who shows up out of nowhere. I'll allow it. And he just like comes in and opens up the red gates, and one, 2 by 2, Din beats up these guards, and just the panic of them behind the next gate waiting for Din to show up was just kind of cool. They're like, oh, it won't open, so they're like panicking, and Din is just kicking butt. I loved it. It was like, wow, this is really good. And all of that entire sequence with R5 dealing with the other robots, the stuff with Axe Woves on that big ship, and what he's doing. All those things felt very classic Star Wars. And I was like, yeah, this is good stuff here. This really feels like one of those classic Star Wars climaxes that you would get in a tenfold movie. Like this is good stuff right here. It may come a little late. A lot of people are out. They're never going to see this stuff, and they're never going to invest their time anymore in the show. But I thought that there were some very lovely moments in that episode, and that was my favorite, I think.
The finale.
Yeah, in the finale with the red scene, and all of the entire sequence that was surrounded that scene as well.
I thought episode 8, I agree, was the best episode as well. My personal favorite was when we seen like Bo-Katan, Grogu, and Din Djarin working together to fight Moff Gideon. Like,
yes!
That collaboration, that was some of the best ever. It made them all feel relevant. That was one thing I thought because one issue I had is that Din Djarin kind of felt like a supporting character in his own show, but I felt like the finale kind of picked that up a little bit by showing them all be relevant and showing that the Mandalorians do need to work together to beat someone like Moff Gideon, because Moff Gideon's clever. You can't beat him permanently. You need that collaboration. And I go back and forth on this. I kind of like that he did destroy the Darksaber, because it showed that it wasn't really meant anything in the end. So I think it was a great symbolism there. But something you said about unanswered questions with Moff Gideon, maybe they could have had, if they're going to have an episode that didn't have Mandalorian, that didn't have Din Djarin in it, maybe instead of Elia Kane and the Doctor, maybe have a Moff Gideon episode showing his escape, showing how he got on Mandalore, showing how he got all this Beskar. That would have been an actual good episode that people would have enjoyed. And plus, it's a character that people like.
Yes.
That would have been...
Absolutely. I think we needed a really powerful unmasking, where you're having, where, like you said, showing us how he escaped. And also, once he's back on the base, give us more information about the cloning, a little bit more information, how long he's been doing this. Give us pull detail out of the story than just, there's Moff Gideon, there are the clones, and there give us the how did it come about kind of information, so we can say, oh wow, all this time we thought this was going on and we had no idea that this was all happening. And just explain it just a little bit more. One little detail that kind of is a stickler, but in the room where there are all the clones, they're kind of just sitting there by themselves, and there's no technician. Who's the scientist that worked on this project? Gideon is smart, but he's no scientist. So who are the people working behind the scenes? Who designed this armor that he has on? It's nearly indestructible, and it seems to be giving him power. Where did it come from? Who created that? These are little things that if we could get the understanding of what this thing is capable of doing, we'll understand why he's able to break the Beskar handle on the Darksaber. Also, and I mentioned this in another stream somewhere, Bo-Katan's hand should be liquefied. She should not be able to even. It should be just pus and just bones, like powderified or something, because we're talking about something that is strong enough to break Beskar, could easily do a number on bones. So there's a lot of stuff there, details that they didn't figure out totally. We get the end. We get the bigger picture. The bigger picture was to destroy the Darksaber, which I'm happy about, because now it was a cursed item. People were fighting over it. It's been a problematic weapon for eons. And finally, the person who would rule Mandalore would earn that through their merit, for the content of who they are and their character. They wouldn't have to depend on an object to determine the fate of an entire world. I mean, at one point, Darth Maul had this thing, and he was ruling Mandalore. That's irresponsible. That's ridiculous that you would allow something like that to happen. But because they put all of their power into this one weapon, wield this weapon and you can control everything. I'm glad it's gone, because now Mandalore actually has a chance to be a better place than even what it used to be. Given that they are truly going to work together, they're truly going to put their differences aside and actually come up with a government that makes sense for them, or some sort of council. and not fight amongst each other for crying out loud. Because I mean, I don't know about you, but at the end of this, I was just really pumped for Mandalorian. I really was like, yeah, please, guys, just can you make it work this time? I really wanted them to succeed more than anything.
Yeah, I'm hoping for something again. Because I've seen Clone Wars, I've seen Rebels, I've seen them go through all that, and I do think they can build something better. And one thing I do want to bring up real quick, I didn't like how Moff Gideon got the Darksaber from Bo-Katan. It wasn't combat. It was, of course, the bad guy's going to betray you. That felt like it went against the Darksaber's lore. But I do think it's a chance to learn from the mistakes and be something better. And I'm really excited for what could potentially happen with Mandalore. It was so cool seeing Mandalore for the first time in live action. And and you're right, it's like little details that they need do matter. And it did felt like with Bo-Katan's hand, that should have been us. You're right. And and I guess my biggest issue, and this is kind of stupid, but the way episode 8 ended, how it has that black circle closing in on Grogu, like the whole "that's all, folks" type of ending.
Oh yeah,
that just felt a little weird. That was a weird ending to me. That I don't know. That was
according to the showrunners or somebody, like it wasn't anything. They were just using one of the old techniques that they used to use to end shows. But I think it for me personally, it just felt like it was the end. It just felt like the end of the end. And I'm sure it's not the end of the show. They'll probably do a season 4. Let's hope. But it did feel as if it was closing a chapter, very, very aggressively closing a chapter. But I do want to talk about one scene that really got me emotional, and that was, and it leads to that scene, that last moment, and that is the adoption scene.
Oh yeah, that was a touching scene.
That was wonderful. I did love it, and I was like, where was this the whole season? Because it would have been really cool to have a precursor moment where it's like, hey, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna still try to find his parents, or what are you gonna do? And it's like, I don't know. And sort of put up this whole thing like, hey, he's thinking about adopting him. It's something that has been introduced as an idea, or what is the solution to this problem of Grogu having a home? He made a decision to leave Luke and pursue a life with Din Djarin as a Mandalorian. And so and let's not forget that Din Djarin presented this to him by giving him the chainmail shirt. So it was a mutual thing, and it was like, okay, well, you offered this to this kid to become a Mandalorian. What was your plan? Did you have a plan? And so it feels like this would be cool for the show as an idea in the writer's room. It didn't feel like it was really fully thought out. And all through the season, and even a little bit in the Boba Fett show, they call him his son, pretty much. Oh, your kid, and Bo even says, your father. She calls him at one point, calls Din Grogu's father. So all of a sudden now at the end it's like, oh yeah, well I guess I'm gonna adopt, and it's like, well, Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But I think that it should have been set up a little bit before that it wasn't official, because I think some people actually thought that he was already adopted or they were
I
already
did.
father and son.
It made it seem like that the whole time. I thought that he basically was his son at that point. I thought that was literally a format. That was the biggest technicality for me ever, to be honest. It was a touching scene, but
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely felt like
It,
he was his son already.
yeah, and I think it would have been hit more powerfully if he would have been like, I'm not your, like if he at some point is like, I'm not your dad, or he's not my son. He's or just something to kind of set up the fact that they aren't father and son, but they're hanging out together because they like each other or whatever. And then but what I did appreciate about the moment when it happened was really like Grogu's response to that, because he did do like, one of his cute like, because it was very funny because the armorer says, he says, can he be, I forgot the exact words he says, but whatever it is that she turns him down, and Grogu bends his head down low and his ears flop over. But when he says, "Can I adopt him?" he goes, "Ah!" It was really adorable, and his
Grogu's
eyes
always
grew.
adorable, though.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
yeah,
it was
that
just
was.
like it. That broke my heart a little bit because I was just like, "This is so sweet." That these guys are officially together now. There's no if ands about it. They're permanently bonded together. And just at that moment, like Grogu looking into the pond, or into the waters, and then um possibly making a connection to the mythosaur, who opens its eyes right then. I was like, wait a minute, did the mythosaur in episode 2 open its eyes because of Grogu? Or like, is there something going on between Grogu and the mythosaur? I like that mystery. I like that mystery because that is definitely setting up something interesting that could happen in the future. We don't know, but it could mean something there. And I really love that moment. Almost felt like it could have ended there, and everything that happened afterwards could have been attributed to um, season 4 if we get it. And I think just seeing that last scene of them together in their house, and Grogu's playing in the pond. It's like it just felt. I actually cried after that because I felt like, wow, these two people are, or these two souls were meant to be together. There's something that is pulling them together, always, and so. I hope they play, whatever happens in the future, they play into that, and that if there are battle scenes or moments where there's a fight or something, they do utilize Grogu as partner, as a true partner in the battle, and not hide over here, or as soon as things get weird, he starts hiding. I'm like, that's not going to be acceptable anymore. If we're supposed to believe that eventually one day he could be a Mandalorian, or stand on his own, we need to see him start to get involved in the battle more. And I think that that's one of the reasons why episode 8 hits very good for me, and it's very entertaining, is because of the fact that he is finally a part of that action, like I thought he should have been all along. So
Yeah, I think you hit everything on the head right there, or the nail on the head right there. I thought that we finally it took a while, which I guess this kind of transitions into the overall thoughts. Is that it took a while to get Grogu to where that point. That was like, I think, one of my big issues with the season overall, is that it took a while for Grogu to get to that point to be that equal that you mentioned. And it just felt like he was just a lot of him in the background, not really. Like, if you're going to justify him taking him from Luke Skywalker, I need to feel like he's there for other than for just Disney to sell merchandise. I want to feel like there was a point. And here's how I kind of overall think of season 3. I feel like they had a great. I feel like whenever you have a new show, you have this plan that you want to do. And then it takes like 1 or 2 seasons to do. And after that, after your initial plan, that's when shows fall apart. A great example I have is, did you ever watch Supernatural?
Remind me what that is again.
Sam and Dean Winchester.
Is it the 2 brothers, right?
Yes.
I have quite a few episodes. Yes, I know about those guys.
So basically where I'm kind of going with this and how this is going to relate to Mandalorian is that Eric Kripke, the creator, had a great 5-season plan for that show. And it stayed good for 5 seasons. He knew from season 1 that season 5 they were going to fight Lucifer. He was building towards that. And then afterwards, other than the fact he also left the show, there was no plan. The show kind of went to shit. I mean, there were moments, but the show kind of went to shit after season 5. And this is what I feel like with Mandalorian kind of, is that they had a plan with Mando getting Grogu to a Jedi, getting him to his home. That was their plan, which took 2 seasons. After that, they didn't have a plan. So I feel like the season kind of suffered as a result, is they continued because the show was popular and they needed to make money. Because if the show's good, you want to do more and you don't end it before it should end. And I think that's, to me, where the show suffered. I think there was a lot of great aspects, a lot of great ideas, not the best execution. One thing I did forget to mention is that I like that they redeemed Ahmed Best, the actor who plays Jar Jar Binks, the Jedi. And we got Taladia joining. Hey, what up, Taladia? Just catching us at the end here, but overall, I think, in my opinion, it's still an enjoyable episode or season, but it was definitely the weakest of the 3. I thought we were going to get something completely different with Mando, Din Djarin stepping up as leader. I thought when they separated Grogu from him, I thought that was a brave choice that they just kind of threw away. And Book of Boba Fett disappointed me on that. So I think there's great potential going forward. And I think, especially if they were building towards Heir of the Empire, it seemed that a lot suffered as a result of them having to change their plans. And we'll get into hope for the future later on, or soon after this recap here. But overall, I would rate the show, and we'll do my very wacky rating of the millions of decimal points. But 8 point, I'm going to give it, because of episode 6, this episode 6 kind of took the average down a lot. So I would give it an 8.2346589 out of 10. It probably would have been in the upper 8s, because the upper, it would have been above an 8.5 if it wasn't for episode 6. But episode 6 just kind of took a lot out of it for me. So that's why I kind of rate it as low as it is. And just after talking about this, I had so many criticisms of it. I still think overall I still give the show kind of a 9.2347 out of 10. But there were some issues I had with the season compared to the other one. So I think it suffered from not really having a real plan. So I guess, what about you? What are your overall thoughts? Just kind of recap the season and a rating.
Yeah, it's a really tough one for me because I usually rate things very, very high. But this one, because of, I'll tell you what the stuff that I enjoyed. The action was pretty good. Some of the visuals are just astounding, amazing. Technically, it's a wonder. The story that we did manage to get about Din Djarin and Grogu, I did like. I liked Bo-Katan as a character. There were some other standouts. By the end, I did like Axe Wolves. And I liked the armor. The problem for me with all of these characters was developing them and giving us a sense of of connection to them. So when they were in danger, that you would feel some tension and some drama from it. Like you would feel like you get a little sick because you didn't want these characters to get hurt. And so it gets a 6.8 from me. Again, a low score. I feel guilty for giving it that low of a score, to be
But
honest, but
there were a
it
lot of criticism,
yeah,
so I
I
get
had a
it.
lot of problems. Yeah, I had a lot of problems with it, but it's still 6.8 is a great score. It's not like a super fantastic score, like a 10 or a 9.8 or anything like that, but it is a decent score. And I have watched movies and given it a lower score and enjoyed them, ridiculously, because like sometimes, not everything can go perfectly with a project. And I think that's what we have here, some things that are going on behind the scenes that we don't know anything about and is really ruling the output of this season. The other let's see, anything else I can think of right quick? Oh yeah, the main thing that I feel this entire season was responsible for was resetting the Mandalorian back to his basics. He is now a bounty hunter or a man for hire with a child, and that's pretty much how he started. You know, with at the beginning of these adventures, and he's back to that. But now he's got a young child to raise, and is training it in the ways of the Mandalorian, and that's about. I think at that point, this is really not a bad place to be, because it opens up the opportunity for thousands of stories to be told. But they probably won't do thousands of stories. They'll probably do a few more. But I do think that there's a lot of potential for Din and Grogu to have many, many adventures together if they are so inclined to do so. It looks great that the future movies coming about, and we know a lot of the stuff is eventually going to trickle into that movie. All the stuff that we're seeing in all these TV series, Ahsoka, and there's another one coming out. They're all focusing on finally this big, epic Avengers level type movie that's going to close off the universe. And I hope it doesn't close it off too much, that Din Djarin can still run around and have some adventures, with Grogu. And I hope and I pray and cross my fingers that they will allow Grogu to have more Force powers. I mean, that is one of the key hallmarks of Star Wars, right? The Force power. And I don't know about giving him a lightsaber, but at least allow him to wield the Force.
Well, you really transitioned to the next topic very well. Like, I wasn't going to just pull the banner up like that, but the way you were talking, it was like, oh, wow, you're literally going into this right now. So, yeah.
I'm
Hope
sorry
for the
about
future. No problem. I love transitions like that. I love when it transitions so smoothly. So, but yeah, I agree with what you said. I hope that I really want to see more focus on Mando and Grogu, but I want to see that there's a clear path that it's going in. That's what I want to see. I want to see that there's an objective for a season or two, and this is where it's sticking. I want to see Grogu really step up more. I want to see Grogu use his Force powers, and I hope that even though if they are setting up for Heir of the Empire, I hope that it doesn't. It's like kind of what happens with the MCU a lot, with like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, is that they're setting. It felt like it was setting up for the next movie or
yeah.
Kang Dynasty, and where we'll see if that happens. But point is, it felt like it sacrificed its own story as a result of that. And that's what I feel like season 3 happened, is because they had to set stuff up. So I hope that they just still make sure that it's still a good story without having to incorporate the other stuff. So that's what I want to see. I want to see a clear narrative. I want to see them follow their own logic, not filler episodes. And heck, maybe they could Darth Jar Jar Jack Black's character, where that's what I call fixing a bad character by turning them into a bad guy, like what they should have done.
Would have been fantastic, yeah.
And they could still do that. They could still kind of fix some of these issues with season 3. Like if they had episode 3, if that played into season 4 a lot more, if some of those storylines played in episode 4, that I would love to see. That could fix some of that.
Like the lovers, the amphibian lovers, Romeo and Juliet couple at the beginning of
episode 6. That was
the
Jack Black one.
Yes, they could play a big part in the next, series. It just, if we can stop like trying to create more, and start working with what we have and building in, filling in the spaces. There's a lot of empty spaces there. And they can fill in the story for us and use some of those characters like that.
Yeah, I agree. And it could almost retroactively make season 3 a better season if they do some of this stuff. So
yes,
I think there's a lot of great stuff going forward. I mean, just because a show has a not great season, they can still pick it up sometimes. And I really do think Mandalorian, they have the chance to really pick the show up and make it feel like a better season. I mean, episode 8 ended great. So there's a lot I have to look forward to. I think we're off to a great start with great stuff coming up with Star Wars. I know there's been some hits and some misses, but that's just with anything. So I guess lastly, those bring us to the final. What do you have coming up on your channel? Any big events that you want to promote?
Ooh, okay. Well, let's see. I have Friday. Friday, I have Cartoons of Our Childhood Part 3 that I'm doing, where I created a list, and there are quite a few wonderful cartoons of our childhood that I added to that list, and I'll be going over that on Friday on my live. And on Saturday, I have a watch party going on. This time it'll be at 6 o'clock. That will be Central Standard. And it will be Krull, that wonderful 1980s movie, Krull. And I hope to see you there. Otherwise, I do videos reviewing a lot of retro material, a lot of retro movies, and specifically in the science fiction genre. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you over there on my channel on YouTube.
And I have the link in her description, or the link to her channel in the description of this video. So check out Retro Nerd Girl. Great content. And I guess on my channel, I will be talking about the Flash trailer at some point. Whether I do it as a Bat Dance Thoughts or a Bat Dance Discussions, we'll see. And then I'm planning some great videos to do for Full Circle, as well as a Star Wars Day video that I'm going to that's going to be called Justice for Fives, where I go over Fives, the clone who almost stopped Order 66, because he deserves justice. And, well, talk about that for Star Wars Day. And then for Trending Day, I'll do for the next, not the Full Circle Trending Day, but the next official trending day specifically for the Netflix campaign. For Henry Cavill's birthday, I got a plan for that as well. So a lot of great stuff coming up with my channel. I know I've been behind because I was on vacation last week in Florida, but now I'm back and plan on ramping up content again. So be on the lookouts. And thank you, Retro Nerd Girl, for coming on. I had a really great time discussing this with you. It's always a pleasure to have you on my channel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on here. I love it. I think I went overboard a little bit a few times, but I had so much fun talking about this.
That's okay. You know, that's why I brought you on, because I knew that you had a lot to say about this stuff and was really glad to really go over this stuff. And if you like Retro Nerd Girl, subscribe to our channel, link in the description. And if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know when a new episode is on. So much great stuff. Don't forget, again, Full Circle is this weekend. This will be a big event for the Snyderverse community to get more Snyderverse on Netflix, maybe. So won't go too much more into that as I try to keep the videos on, try not to mix DC and Star Wars too much in case I get a viewer who only likes Star Wars and only likes DC and vice versa. So, but still, great stuff coming on my channel. Great stuff coming up. So have a great night. And lastly, have a bat-tastic day.